When Sheila E. realized she'd forgotten to call Jellybean Johnson on his birthday Wednesday, she figured she'd catch him the next day. By Friday night, her friend of decades was dead at 69. And that missed call became a regret she'll carry forever. But here's what nobody's talking about. The birthday message Jellybean posted just 48 hours before he collapsed revealed he'd been thinking about death, about legacy, about what happens when you're gone. His son Regal died the same way Prince did, and the museum Jellybean was building to honor them both now stands unfinished without the man who dreamed it into existence. What happened in those final 48 hours? And why did one of funk's greatest drummers suddenly drop dead just after turning 69? Garry George Johnson, the man the world knew as Jellybean, died suddenly Friday night according to family members who are still reeling from the shock. No official cause of death has been released, leaving the music community desperate for answers and searching for clues in his final days. Sheila E. broke the devastating news on Facebook, writing that her dear friend had just passed away and she was crying because yesterday was his birthday and she forgot to call him. She apologized through her tears, telling him she loved him and calling him Bean like she always did. That forgotten birthday call haunts her now, a final conversation that slipped away before she realized it was her last chance. Johnson's daughter Bianca Rhodes posted a photo Saturday showing her father in full stage glory, rocking a hat and an immaculate purple suit with a smile that could light up any venue. Her caption cut straight to the heart with just a few words. "I love you, Daddy. Daddy's big baby. Rest well." The purple wasn't coincidental. Purple belonged to Prince, and Jellybean spent his entire life in Prince's creative universe, helping forge the Minneapolis sound that revolutionized funk, rock, and R&B. On Wednesday, November 19, Johnson celebrated his 69th birthday by posting a reflective message asking himself what legacy truly means and what he wanted to leave behind for future generations. He wrote that the answer was simple. He wanted their story protected, their community honored, and the next generation to have access, opportunity, and somewhere to belong. 2 days later, he was gone.
Born in Chicago on November 19, 1956, young Garry moved to Minneapolis at 13 when his mother relocated the family, searching for a safer life away from the gang violence consuming their neighborhood. To keep him out of trouble and off the streets, she bought him his first real drum kit. That budget kit didn't survive long, though. Johnson literally destroyed it by Christmas night and went right back to beating on his mother's pots, pans, and the coffee table like he'd done before. His mother realized this wasn't a phase or hobby, but a genuine calling, so she invested in a proper professional kit. That single decision altered the trajectory of music history. Johnson taught himself to play drums by listening obsessively to the radio. But here's the twist that shaped his unique sound. Black radio only broadcast 4 hours daily from 1 to 5 in the afternoon, forcing him to listen to white rock stations the rest of the time. That's how he discovered Three Dog Night, Black Sabbath, and other rock bands that changed his musical DNA. That fusion of influences, blending hard funk and R&B with aggressive rock edge, became essential to creating the Minneapolis sound. The Chicago neighborhood gangs had been heavily recruiting young Garry before his mother moved them north. Years later, he credited her for saving his life, saying in Chicago he was just trying to survive, but Minneapolis became a blessing from God at exactly the right place and time. As a teenager in the early 1970s, he joined Flight Time. And get this, the Jellybean nickname came from a moment of brutal self-criticism after a rough performance. He told the owner of the Flame Bar on Nicollet Avenue that their show was a bunch of jelly beans, basically calling it garbage. The next day, the club owner had printed a custom Jellybean shirt for him, and the name stuck forever. That random self-deprecating comment gave him the stage name that would appear on platinum albums and concert posters for 5 decades. Johnson bonded with other North Minneapolis kids obsessed with music, including future legends Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Morris Day, and a skinny kid named Prince Rogers Nelson. They performed at massive summer festivals where rival bands competed in front of thousands, cutting their teeth as teenagers and learning to command a stage. When Prince scored his Warner Bros. Record deal at just 18 years old, part of the contract required him to cultivate and produce other Minneapolis artists. Prince recruited his friends and in 1981 formed the funk rock band The Time, appointing Jellybean as drummer. Prince told Morris Day to bring Jellybean back and they'd form the band with Morris singing. Morris protested that he didn't want to sing and wanted to play drums instead, but Prince insisted he'd teach him to front the band. Over the next decade, Johnson became the rhythmic backbone driving the Time's Billboard Hot 100 hits, including Jungle Love, Jerk Out, and The Bird. His sharp funk attack mixed with rock edge and R&B soul shaped instant classics like 777-9311, Cool, and The Walk. He was instrumental on the band's first 3 studio albums, The Time in 1980, What Time Is It in 1982, and Ice Cream Castle in 1984. Prince frequently praised Jellybean as the best drummer in R&B, and anyone who heard him play understood exactly why. His grooves were infectious, his timing flawless, his style instantly recognizable. Johnson appeared as a fictionalized version of himself in the legendary 1984 film Purple Rain, and that movie became a cultural earthquake that introduced millions of viewers worldwide to the Minneapolis Sound. Watching Jellybean and The Time perform on screen, audiences witnessed something revolutionary being born. In 1985, Johnson chose to leave The Time, but his departure wasn't permanent. He rejoined for Prince's Graffiti Bridge film in 1990 and played on the accompanying album Pandemonium, proving their creative connection remained strong despite the years apart.
Drumming was just the beginning, though. After The Time initially split, Johnson became a cornerstone of Flight Time Productions, emerging as an in-demand producer, session guitarist, and drummer for hire. He produced Janet Jackson's 1990 #1 smash, Black Cat, a rock-influenced banger that proved he could cross genres effortlessly and dominate any style. His first major production assignment was Alexander O'Neal's #11 R&B hit, Innocent, where he wasn't just the drummer, but delivered the scorching guitar solos for the second half of that 10-minute epic. That guitar solo stretching across Innocent's blistering runtime remains one of the era's most underrated moments. He also produced and drummed for Patti LaBelle, Human League, New Edition, Cherrelle, and Alexander O'Neal across multiple projects. His production credits read like a hits compilation. Alexander O'Neal's Criticize, hitting #4 on R&B charts. Nona Hendrix's Why Should I Cry at #5 R&B. New Edition's Crucial at #4 R&B. And Mint Condition's Breakin' My Heart Pretty Brown Eyes, reaching #3 R&B and #6 pop. Every artist he touched ended up with a hit, his production style infusing that Minneapolis flavor into everything he created. Johnson was also a key member of The Family, another group formed by Prince in 1984 that paired Jellybean's tight, instinctive drumming with a more sophisticated blend of funk, jazz, and orchestral pop. Family vocalist Susannah Melvoin paid tribute to her beautiful brother, saying this band was and is the kind of family that believed they all rightfully belonged together in love, music, and kindness. Melvoin praised his guitar skills as much as his drumming, saying oxygen for him was the inhale and exhale of playing his guitar. She mourned him as her big brother, who watched over her and everyone he loved. In 2008, Johnson performed with Rihanna at the 50th Grammy Awards, proving he could collaborate with contemporary artists decades younger and stay relevant across generations. In 2017, Johnson and the rest of The Time paid emotional tribute to Prince at the 59th Annual Grammy Awards, playing Jungle Love, The Bird, and Prince's Let's Go Crazy with an assist from Bruno Mars. That performance honored the man who'd brought them all together, who died unexpectedly just a year earlier. The grief visible on stage was overwhelming, every note played for their fallen leader.
Morris Day, lead singer of Morris Day and The Time, confirmed Johnson's death to Rolling Stone, with a statement calling Jellybean a friend since age 11. Day said he wasn't just a bandmate, but more like a brother, describing him as a consummate musician who only wanted to play and talk music constantly. Day noted that even after their concerts ended, Johnson would find a local pub, jump on stage, and jam with the house band until closing time. He said he's certain Jellybean is up in heaven now with Prince, assembling an all-star lineup of some of the baddest musicians to ever do it. That image of Jellybean and Prince reunited offers comfort through the devastating loss. Friends described him as a constant presence in Minneapolis and St. Paul music clubs most nights, sporting a showy coat, flashy shirt, and stylish hat that made him impossible to miss. He was a friend to all musicians, whether famous or aspiring. Music maven Nancy Anderson said she talked or texted Johnson, Bean to his friends, just about every day, including Friday. She called him that guy everybody loved, emphasizing his infectious smile and genuine laugh, where his shoulders moved up and down. She stressed he was always gracious and kind to everyone, never too busy to share his time, especially with young musicians trying to find their way. Johnson was legendary for sharing his time, advice, and encouragement with young musicians searching for direction, carrying his massive success without any ego and never forgetting where he came from. He was a regular guest instructor at Purple Playground's Academy of Prince teen program every summer in the Twin Cities, imparting hard-earned wisdom while sharing incredible war stories. The next generation of Minneapolis musicians learned directly from one of the architects of the sound that made their city legendary.
In 2021, at age 64, Johnson released his long-awaited debut album, Get Experienced, under the name Jellybean Johnson Experience, finally showcasing his guitar work. He completed it during the COVID pandemic shutdown, telling the Minnesota Star-Tribune they were in the fourth quarter now, and he just wanted to put something out before they put him in the ground. He said he'd spent most of his musical life backing up his friends and other people, frankly, never wanting to be the boss. But he wanted to leave something that was purely him, something he was fully responsible for. That solo album stands as his artistic statement, Jellybean finally stepping into the spotlight he'd spent decades shining on others. Johnson once told journalist Dan Leroy that he didn't try to get his drumming technically perfect, acknowledging there were tons of world-class drummers who could nail it pretty close. He said he never tried to get that close, but instead tried to get it the Jellybean way. And it worked, fooling a lot of people. He'd heard people say nobody can play like Jelly, admitting there were better technical drummers than him, but at least he fooled listeners into thinking he had something special. That humility defined him, always deflecting praise while his genius spoke through every beat he played. Here's where his story gets absolutely heartbreaking. Johnson lost his son Regal in April to the same thing that took Prince, and while he didn't explicitly say it, everyone understood he meant an overdose. He said Prince left the world a collection of music and Paisley Park, and he wanted to leave something meaningful for himself and his son, too. That's how the Minneapolis Sound Museum concept was born. Johnson founded the museum in 2022, designed to educate, celebrate, and create, while providing an environment to learn, gather, and showcase artistry that preserves and fosters the Minneapolis sound genre for future generations.
The museum's vision included honoring all those who created the sound, an event space for people to experience the sound live, and a studio named in honor of his son, Regal the Rare, where the next generation could create their own version of the sound. It would also feature retail space with merchandise and collectibles related to the Minneapolis sound, including vintage vinyl. When asked what one word described the Minneapolis sound, Johnson responded, laughing, "Funky." He told interviewers he wanted to spotlight the others who came along with Prince, but weren't as famous, wanting visitors to see all the history surrounding Prince and everyone who contributed to making him the force he became. The museum's ambitious plan included building a recording studio, event space, and retail shop in North Minneapolis, the neighborhood where it all began. Johnson said they wanted to give kids over there some hope, because a lot of them still struggled, but they wanted to show them there was another way out besides gangs and violence. His vision extended beyond preservation into inspiration and opportunity. Johnson founded a museum alongside his longtime partner of more than 20 years, Marty Bragg, and her daughter.
making it a family project designed to outlive him. In 2022, the Time received the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Soul Train Awards, validating decades of contributions to Black music and culture. Johnson collapsed Friday at his Brooklyn Park home and died at North Memorial Health Hospital. He had just turned 69 on Wednesday, celebrating with that reflective social media post about legacy and the next generation. Paul Peterson, who played in bands with Johnson since 1983, called him an absolute icon who wasn't just an architect of the Minneapolis Sound, but mentored countless young players throughout his life. In Johnson's birthday message posted shortly before his death, he reflected on his journey, saying when he looked back, he didn't first think about the big stages or awards, but about the way, that little community center on the north side where a bunch of young kids picked up instruments and discovered who they were meant to be.
Johnson's legacy lives on at the Minneapolis Sound Museum he founded with his wife and daughter, though now they'll have to complete that vision without him guiding the way. The museum stands as proof of his commitment to education and cultural preservation, ensuring the Minneapolis Sound isn't forgotten or overshadowed by any single artist. His drumming shaped the Time's greatest hits. His production work created chart toppers across genres. His guitar playing impressed even the most technical musicians, and his mentorship inspired generations. While the world saw a superstar musician, Minnesota artists saw a mentor who shared freely without ego or expectation. Jellybean Johnson's death at 69, just 2 days after his birthday, and while still actively pursuing his museum dream, proves that legends aren't guaranteed tomorrow. The man who escaped Chicago gang violence, who helped create one of the most influential sounds in pop music history, who produced #1 hits and played stadiums worldwide, died suddenly without warning. His final social media post asking what legacy means and wanting the next generation to have access and opportunity now reads like a goodbye letter he didn't know he was writing. The Minneapolis Sound Museum he envisioned must now continue without its architect and visionary. Somewhere in North Minneapolis, that little community center where young Jellybean first discovered drums still stands, a humble beginning to an extraordinary journey. And if Morris Day is right, Jellybean Johnson is already in heaven jamming with Prince, assembling the funkiest band eternity has ever heard, finally reunited with the friend who gave him his shot at immortality.